But in sports, there's always next game. There's always next week. There's always next year. So you have to try to look for ways to improve, ways to evaluate, ways to build your optimism. Last night, if you watched Monday Night Football, as many of you did, I'm sure, was a perfect, quintessential, flawless example of how a great quarterback can be held back by his supporting cast, but still look like the best player on the field. Patrick Mahomes, I'm going to break news here. Ready? Get breaking news ready. Patrick Mahomes is the best player in football. Hey, crazy, right? Well, the best player in football lost last night. He did not win. He threw for under 200 yards, missed some throws that he normally doesn't miss, underthrew badly an interception in the end zone, and still, this is what I'm telling you. It's just the best example of what I've been trying to tell you. He still looked like the best player in football. Right when everyone wants to say, "Oh, Bryce Young can have success. Look at the stats. He's being held back." I'm going, yup, and yup. But we know what good quarterbacks in bad situations look like. Patrick Mahomes was running for his life at times last night. Patrick Mahomes was throwing balls on the bullseye and getting dropped by his wide receivers, including his all-world, all-everything, one of the best of all time, Travis Kelce tight end. Yet no one at any point in time was like, I don't know. This guy might not have it. He only threw for 100 and whatever some odd yards. The deep ball to Marquez Valdez-Scantling should have given them the lead with less than 2 minutes to play. We've all seen it. We've seen it from multiple angles. We've seen it in super slow motion. We've seen Marquez Valdez-Scantling slamming his helmet on the way into the locker room. We've seen the post where he says he's going to get better, because that's what you have to do when you make a mistake like that, is own it. We've seen it all. You've probably seen Patrick Mahomes in the postgame say, I could have thrown it a bit shorter. Which, if he's being honest, half a foot. Probably could have reeled it back in half a foot, would have been an easier catch. That's how nitpicky he is with his own performance. But it's not just one throw. It's not like, oh, you can forget about the interception, everything. The 4th and 25, the final throw for Patrick Mahomes, 4th and 25, you need to get 25 yards to keep the game alive. He made a low-key, unreal throw. It's going to be overshadowed by the drop by MVS. It was one of the more impressive throws of the year.
It was a dart.
It was, when you include his drop, when you include that the receiver ran essentially a 28-yard hitch route, probably about 32 yards on an absolute rope. Perfect timing, perfect placement. Got there between 3 defenders. Should have been a completion. Scooted right on through the wide receiver's hands for the 5th drop of the night.
Well, it was raining. It was wet.
Sure. I mean, you do get paid to catch the ball.
Slippery when wet, man.
Yeah, that's where you want to go with it? Slippery when wet. Slippery to throw. Slippery to have a grip by the quarterback. He threw a 110-mile-an-hour fastball, 32 yards on the spot. All you had to do was catch it. My point is this, and by the way, let me get ahead of this. I'm not saying Bryce Young should look like Patrick Mahomes. That's an unfair expectation. I'm not saying, well, just make all the throws like you're the best player in the world, and then we won't blame you for your supporting cast. I'm not saying that. I'm saying we know what it looks like when the rest of the team isn't holding up their part of the bargain, but you should still hold up your part of the bargain. You should still look like the number 1 overall pick. You should still look like Bryce Young. You can be on a bad team and still look as good as you are. Whatever level that is. Bryce Young could still look like he's worthy of a number 1 overall pick while we're going, yeah, but he doesn't have any time. Go back to Joe Burrow's rookie year, pre-injury, right? Because he I think, blew out his knee, which at this point in time, which injury are we talking about, Joe? Go back to Joe Burrow's rookie year. He was getting absolutely harassed, right? He was getting absolutely chased all over the field. And this was pre-Jamar Chase, by the way. Right? Jamar Chase wasn't drafted until the next year. Now, that's not to say he didn't have anyone on Tyler Boyd. He had some players that you like, but it's not like he had a T. Higgins. It's not like he had a billion wide-open wide receivers running around. But you watched it, and guess what you said? Oh, it looks like the number 1 overall pick. Looks like as soon as he gets to stop running for his life, he's going to be pretty darn good. I don't like the idea that Panthers or Panthers evaluators or Panthers fans or Greg Olson, who was on the call for the Panthers game, simply say, well, the Panthers aren't any good, so we can't take any information from the way Bryce Young plays. Well, the Panthers front office didn't put together an offensive line that's good enough, so this year, absolutely nothing counts. That's not fair. That's not true either. How about you just look at the decisions he makes? How about you just look at how he reacts to being in negative situations? Patrick Mahomes last night was in a negative situation. Sure, as Dennis brought up, maybe it was the weather. Maybe it was the weather. They had 5 drops last night. The weather last night can't explain the 21 other drops that have come this year for the Chiefs, which all add up to a league high. Or the highest in the last 10 years drop rate by wide receivers in the first 10 games. No team in the last 10 years in the NFL has had wide receivers drop a higher percentage of their passes thrown their way, targets, than the Chiefs. I kind of like that if I'm evaluating Patrick Mahomes, right? Because guess what I'm saying? This guy is going to be unreal when we get him some guys that can catch. Now, with Patrick Mahomes, you already know he's going to be unreal. But you get what I'm saying. I want Bryce Young to show us this guy is going to be unreal when you get 5 guys that can pass block in front of him. That's how I felt with Joe Burrow in the Bengals. I was going, man, as soon as they give him some time, watch the heck out. And then guess what they did that offseason? I think they spent $84 million or some crazy number on 3 brand new starting offensive linemen.
They spent a lot of money.
And it's like, oh, they saw what we saw. They evaluated a player on a bad team and said, oh, he's going to be really gosh darn good. We just need to get him an offensive line. They got him an offensive line. Guess what happened the next time he was healthy for a full season?
They went to the Super Bowl.
There it is. There it is. Even Mahomes can't overcome wide receiver drops and lack of help and everything else. But he might be able to teach us something about how quarterbacks look when they're dealing with wide receiver drops and lack of health. Lack of help would be the way I wanted to say that, not lack of health. Joe Burrow is dealing with lack of health. But even like you could even relay it over to Philly. At times last night, Philly's offensive line wasn't blocking great. Jalen Hurts still looked pretty darn good. Now, I know you're comparing him to the best of the best, and I know that's not fair. So just take everything I said, scale it down 3 notches, Bryce Young. It's all to scale, right? Bryce Young.
Yeah.
He's the number 1 overall pick, though. He should be judged harshly. Like it's
yeah.
You aren't the number 1 overall pick because you're like, maybe one day you'll be pretty good. Like the expectation should be high. Number 1 overall picks are picked as franchise changers. You want them to end up in gold jackets.